Thanks for checking out my video. If you want to learn more from me, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. You can find the links to a lot of those in the description. Alright, so today I thought I'd keep it rather simple with just some talks about meditation and stuff. Now, I'm not entirely sure when this video is going to go up, but my lady and I were talking about doing a live stream about this stuff, so if this video happens after that live stream, then there might be a couple of the same things, but I might be able to go more into them here. I've been up for about an hour, and it's quite early in the morning, and it's dang hot. But let's just see what we get into. So I actually did take notes for this one, so hang on a second. So meditation can seem like simple to some people. It can seem kind of overwhelming to other people. It might even seem complicated, but it's not entirely that complicated. Sometimes we think too much about something and we make it more than it is. But some people think that, okay, let's just start at, at the very basics. Some people think that meditation is a lack of thinking. You're supposed to keep your mind empty. Well, if you've ever tried to not think about anything, then you know your brain can't do that. Your brain will always need something to think about, something to focus on, something that it needs to chew on, right? So we got to give it something to chew on. That's why meditation can, at its most basic levels, be something like focusing on your breathing, in, out, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, in, out, stuff like that. And then you can also focus on an object, like meditating with your eyes slightly open, staring at a ritual object on your altar, and studying it, and then maybe just intentionally focusing on one part of it, and then moving to another part of it, and moving to another part of it. You could do this with like a statue for a deity or a or someone or a spirit that you're trying to work with, even meditating and staring at a sigil or something like that. Even in the 50 names of Marduk, with working with the sigils, you're supposed to gaze at the sigil with an intention in mind. You could do the same thing with a statue, where you are trying to convey an idea or a prayer to a particular statue, and the meditation is a focused session on that particular thing. You can meditate on an idea, and then meditating on that idea, like if I wanted to think about pancakes, which I don't really like to eat, they're too filling. But if I was thinking about pancakes, I'm not just going to sit there thinking pancakes, 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 right? Other thoughts about pancakes are going to come up. How they look when they're lathered in syrup, whether they have butter on the top, what the color of them, different things like that. You see how you're going through kind of like a stream of consciousness thing. You can even meditate just observing where your thoughts go, whether they go to up, work, home, TV, bed stuff, or you're meditating on a particular concept. Like when I have like writer's block and I'm trying to parcel something out, I might do meditation where I allow my mind to flow freely and I just observe it. And me not getting in the way can help to come up with and generate different ideas. You know, even if you're in the shower and you randomly come up with an idea, that's because you are kind of distracted by the shower and letting your mind flow freely as you are trying to, use the soap and the shampoo and whatnot. Um, and then you can even, so let me see, talked about the focusing on different stuff and flowing with different ideas. And then you can even do things like mantras. Mantras are mind protectors. We chant mantras to program something into our minds, whether it's in a different language, like Om Mani Padme Hum, or Om Ahum Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hum, or Om Tare Tutare Tutre Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha, different ones like that. They're programming your mind even at a subconscious level. Like those mantras I just said, you might not know what they mean, but they do carry a certain kind of energy to them. If you understand what they mean, then it's even deeper than that. But arguably, you don't necessarily need to know the kind of meaning behind a mantra because it's kind of encoded in there. Of course, people could debate me on that. Um, but so there's mantra meditation too. So you can meditate in a bunch of different ways. you can also classify meditation with journeying and astral travel and things like that. Although I would like to say that meditation is for focus and more of an intellectual kind of thing, and then visualizations and journeys and going inward or going outward are more of a journeying kind of traveling kind of thing with more of a mission or a task in mind. Whether I'm trying to parcel out something about, maybe I want to dig into my past about something and explore that a little bit, or dig into the future and see how that kind of thing would go. If I did A, B would happen. If I did C, D would happen, something like that. And even with visualization and whatnot, there might be people that are good at visualization. There might be people that suck at it. There might be people that are able to visualize and see things in like a movie format where you can picture something and it plays out like a movie. Other people might get snapshots, like you're scrolling through an album on your phone where you just get little still shots of whatever wherever you're trying to journey or visualize in order to experience something. If you've ever done guided meditations, you might have it play out like a movie. You're walking through a forest and you walk past some flowers and then you find a tree and it's got a hole in it and you enter the hole and there's a cave and blah blah blah. You might just see snapshots of the different things I described, or you could see a play-by-play flow like a movie of those different things that I described. And some people can see them in black and white. Some people can see them in full color. Some people can see them as like not full images, but kind of, or not well-defined images, but kind of blurry, things like that. All of these different things are, well, they're all different, but that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody who can fully visualize a movie is way better than someone who can only see snapshots. And there's some people that might not see anything at all. But in the event that you do that kind of thing where you're doing guided meditations or whatever, and you can only kind of think linguistically, where you're getting the idea of, okay, now I'm going into a cave and I'm going down a set of stairs and there's some torches on the wall and I see some paintings and whatever. And you might only have that written kind of thing. It's like reading a book versus watching a movie, and that's perfectly fine. Some people, I forgot the term for it right now, but they don't have the ability to visualize. Does that mean you can't journey, can't meditate, and whatnot? No, it just means that you're different than other people. That's like having access to books rather than having access to movies. You have all the books on your shelf, but you don't have Netflix. If you want to, experience the Magician's book series, you can only read it. You can't watch it on TV. The books are better anyway. But that's my humble opinion. Most books are better than most films, except for The 100. The TV show did it way better than the books. But that just means you have a different skill than someone else, and that's fine. So now that I went over that for about 8 minutes, let's talk a couple of different things here. So let's talk about position. So I'm sitting right now. Could I meditate like this? Sit crisscross applesauce, or even with both of my legs down on the floor? Sure. Could that work better for one person than another person? Absolutely, positively. Where I have hemiataxia, which means I have bad coordination on this entire side of me, from my legs, or from my leg, my arm, even my back muscles and stuff. So sitting in a proper posture is not something I am good at, because I constantly have to think about it, because my brain doesn't really know how to control that on its own, even at a subconscious level. So do you think that I can sit like this and meditate? No, I can't. I suck. Even when I started learning how to meditate, when I took it for a stress and stress management summer term class when I was in college, I learned to meditate laying down. It was the only thing that worked for me. Now, if you meditate laying down and you end up falling asleep, that could just be training wheels, and eventually you'll work your way out of it, or you might need to get a better sleep schedule. That's another tip. One of the things that me and my lady came up with just last night was, because we were taking some classes and doing some guided meditations and stuff, and I fell asleep straight up 3 times. I needed the sleep because of a terrible sleep schedule, but we were like thinking, how do you get around that? And that's where the inspo for this kind of video came up from. But because I have poor trunk control, as they call it, sitting doesn't work for me. If I lay down, I might fall asleep. So I thought of sitting in, we have some backjack chairs, so I could lean back. That's not going to make me fall asleep, but it's going to take the stress away from my back muscles having to hold me up. So is that going to help me relax my body and leave it behind so I can do guided meditations and stuff? You bet. So experiment with what works for you. Sitting in a chair, sitting on the floor, sitting on the couch, laying down. See what works for you. Just because somebody does it one way doesn't mean you necessarily have to. Even in some of the Tibetan books that I have on Tibetan Buddhist practice, they say sitting with good posture, that's how you're supposed to do it. Well, that's traditional stuff. You want to do it that way? You want to work your way up to that? Cool beans. Go for it. Good for you. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the absolute be-all, end-all. This is the only way to do it. And then, let's see, a couple of other things. Talked about position. Then we have meditation shawls and blankets. Sometimes we might need a little bit more of a sensory kind of thing, where, you see people covering themselves with meditation shawls. I do personally like that. I don't exactly know why, but that's one of the things that also does work for me when it's not too dang hot. Where I think that wrapping yourself in a blanket or whatever does something with a kind of a sensory overload, which I did talk about in a previous video with meditation, that can help you focus. Now, that's, once again, give it a try. And all these different things I talk about, give them a try and see what works for you. If you know what works for you, great. Put it down in the comments. Let me know. But hopefully this is some good food for thought. Now, some people need music to meditate to. I have a little bit of ADD. My lady's got a heck of a lot more ADD than I do. And so it's very hard for her to stay focused on a particular thing. So she always meditates with music. So one of the things, sorry, she was going to mess up the camera. One of the things is when you're meditating with music, find something that works for you. Do not do anything with words. No music with words. Why? Because then your brain hears those words and it's logical stuff. It's higher mind stuff. Because your brain is like, oh, what did that person say? Now I have to think about the meaning of it and blah, 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 blah. So no words. I mean, you can do stuff with like some lo-fi music. You can do stuff with things like, like movie soundtracks, or David Arkenstone is a particular favorite of mine, or some chill step music, stuff like that. If you can meditate to heavy death metal that has no lyrics or whatever, by all means, go for it. Some kind of things like that just makes me think of the Do Army music. If I'm dating myself at this point with that kind of stuff, with what is it? Trying to remember the name of something. I'll have to look it up later. Hamster Apprentice, Steven Seagal. I wonder if anybody's catching those references, but that kind of stuff is funny. Anyways, so music without lyrics, do some etheric stuff, movie soundtracks, David Arkenstone, jazz like that. So try that, see if that works. Another thing that you can think about is white noise. I think that's what it's called. It's just that kind of background noise stuff, like the sound of running water, the sound of thunderstorms, the sound of rain, the sound of a waterfall, stuff like that. Because that is something that might be a little bit of a sensory kind of thing to allow something in here, because otherwise your brain, especially when you're starting out with meditation, if you're being quiet, your brain's going to be like, I'm not hearing anything. I'm not being stimulated. I don't like this. I can't focus because I'm trying to find other external stimulation to focus on, and it's driving me nuts. Your brain might do that. So that's why having music is great, in my opinion. It works for me. Might not work for you. Try something like that. And then you might even think about like some shamanic drumming tracks. Like, for example, we have the frame drum, So like a frame drum stuff, like you can Google shamanic drumming, and get an idea for a track that would just kind of sound something like, and the constant noise from this kind of thing, it actually manipulates your brain waves. I don't know if the mic can pick that up, but that kind of repetitive bang, 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 that can manipulate your brain waves. It can sync up, your brain waves, and when it's going in your ears and whatnot, especially if you're going to do headphones or whatever, do like, do the headphones, do surround sound so it gets in there. We can even talk about binaural beats with that kind of thing. But when you're doing that kind of thing, it can alter your brainwave state into a more of a meditative state. Now, you can see that I just played that, so you could listen to some shamanic drumming tracks. They have them on YouTube. You know, find something that's going to go longer than your meditation session, so it doesn't pause, and then you have to restart it, because you got to get out of meditation to think logically to restart it or whatever, and then you might also want to think about finding a way that they are ad-free, because you don't want to be meditating and all of a sudden you have an ad for Pinethal, right? Something like that. You might even want to consider drumming for yourself with something like this. Frame drum, this costs about like somewhere around, maybe around $100, where if you can get into it, you can meditate while just doing that subconscious action of drumming, and some people can lead their own journeys for themselves and their own meditation sessions for themselves just like that. Because once you get the hang of drumming like that, it's all subconscious right now, and I don't really have to think about it. And then I can just allow my meditation session to go where it needs to go, and for me to do what I need to do in planes other than the physical, right? So let me just put this away while I'm talking here, because I like to keep my stuff neat and tidy, and I don't like to have my things out, especially where my cats can find them, So, another thing that you want to think about is lighting. So, I get a lot of light in certain parts of my house, and you might want to think about, how much lighting do I want? Do I not want? If you have a lot of curtains and stuff and the light comes in anyways, you might want to think about some sensory deprivation stuff, like an eye mask or a blindfold, or covering yourself with a blanket depending on how hot it is, because you might have the light coming in and that signaling to your brain to stay awake and think up, work, home, TV, bed, normal stuff. Whereas when you bring the lights down, your mind is like, I can relax, and then you can hijack that and go somewhere, right? So there's those different kinds of things. Did I have any other notes on this particular thing? No. So that's the end of the notes here. Basically, experiment with all the different things that I talked about and find out what works for you. If you guys liked this, definitely let me know any questions or comments that you might have. What works for you in meditation? Have you tried anything? Have you fallen asleep during meditation? What kind of experiences do you have? If you're not already subscribed to this channel, definitely do that if you want to have more and more and more videos on magic, spiritual practices, shamanism, journeying, meditation, and other things that I come out with, because I post once a week. So let me know what you thought about this one. Drop a like if you didn't, and I'll see you next time. Good hunting.